Hello, I'm Tracy Overstreet, local government reporter here at The Independent, and today we're going to talk with Regional Planning Director Chad Nabity. And the topic for our discussion today will be group homes, since this has been an issue that the city and Hall County has been dealing with of late. Chad, to give a little bit of background how this came about, a complaint had been filed with the Nebraska Equal Opportunity Commission regarding fair housing, and that went both to Hall County and to your office.
Yes.
Regarding zoning issues. And it's my understanding that there was not a violation with what the city was doing, but rather with how third parties were interpreting the city and county zoning regulations.
That is correct. The indications that we've received from the NEOC, Nebraska Equal Opportunity Commission, is that they had received a complaint because an independent third party had adopted our definitions within their private covenants. Private covenants are attached to the land, and they are a contract between the property owners that they will all agree to follow this set of rules. And one of the subdivisions in town had adopted regulations or definitions directly out of our zoning regulations and interpreted those differently than city and county building department and planning department staff would have interpreted them, and made some decisions that led to complaints against that subdivision for fair housing.
Well, and I know from the Planning Commission meeting that was held, Greg Baxter from Summerfield Estates came and spoke that it was his subdivision that had maybe led to this complaint after they had rejected selling a couple of lots, initially rejected selling some lots to for the use of group homes for developmentally disabled people.
Correct.
So let's talk a little bit about how the definitions are changing and how that also affects with covenants. Can a subdivision restrict having a group home in their subdivision?
From my understanding of the law, no, they cannot. If it is a group home for the developmentally disabled persons are a protected class under federal fair housing. So with them as a protected class, it would be the same thing as saying you can't sell your property to someone who's Catholic or who's black or who's Hispanic. Those are protected classes.
Religion,
race, ethnicity, disability, all of those are federally protected classes, and you cannot discriminate based on those federal protections.
Okay, so that's what you're geared toward, finding some definitions that will allow those protections to occur.
Right.
But in the group home definition, how does that affect group homes that we know them in Grand Island, say Friendship House, that deals with substance abuse, or Hope Harbor, which is a homeless shelter, or some of these facilities that have a large number of people, unrelated people, living under one roof?
And in most of those cases, those are already in areas where we permit a larger facility. So those aren't going to run into any issues with this.
Okay.
Because within the zoning, we're already permitting apartment buildings, we're permitting boarding houses, we're permitting large group quarters in those areas. Where this really gets into it from an overall national legal perspective is when you are discriminating against essentially single-family uses. And there is a movement, and has been for a lot of years, to get developmentally disabled people into a single-family environment.
Into very residential settings.
Very residential setting, 2 or 3, 4 people living in that house together as a family unit, doing day-to-day family activities, cooking, cleaning, going to work, all of the things that families do.
So how is the city going to allow that? I know one of the initial concerns was size. And under one of the proposals that the Planning Commission had debated, it would have allowed up to 16 people.
And that would have been based on building code.
Okay.
What we've really done is kind of gone back and forth and redefined this, and at this point the Planning Commission is, I think, pretty happy with where we're at. One, we've got the definition of family. And our current definition of family would be shall mean a head of household and one or more persons related to the head by blood marriage or adoption living together in a single dwelling. So that is what it is right now. We're looking at changing that to include adoption, guardianship, or duly authorized custodial relationship. What that does is allow foster children those kinds of relationships where you may have more than 5 people because you've got your 2 kids and you've got a couple of foster kids and mom and dad sharing a house. That's not an unreasonable thing. So we want to make sure that we can allow that. The 5 unrelated persons living together in a single dwelling. We picked 5 because at 6 to 16, it changes the building code standards.
Do you have to have a more industrial type housing?
A higher level of residential construction.
Okay, so a single family house or single family units can be in residential neighborhoods. Families, the head of household, if they're related by marriage, by blood, by adoption, and then adding in the guardianship and the duly authorized custodial so that you can address foster families. And of course you could have the Waltons or the Nabitys or whatever with 12 or 15 or however many kids. And then if they're unrelated though, the city's definition is going to hold that to 5, a maximum of 5.
Right.
Does that mean staff and people who live there, or just the people who live there?
It is, at this point, it would be staff and the people living there. Now, the way that the Department of Health and Human Services has set up their payments for these facilities, they really don't want to see more than 3 developmentally disabled persons in a single unit. So the 5 gives a little bit of flexibility there over what they typically do. And they do make allowances that would allow up to 6 potentially with some variances from their regulations, but that's based on the neighborhood. And so if you've got that big house, 8-bedroom house in a old neighborhood and you want to convert that and you want to have 6 people there, that's probably not unreasonable because the house and all of the houses around it are of similar nature.
Well, I know some of the people from Summerfield had expressed some concern also with traffic flow, parking ability, and I know you have stated many a time that this isn't just a Summerfield issue, that you're looking for a policy that's going to work for the city in total. But how would any neighborhood deal with the parking and additional traffic that may come along with a group home?
If you're in that 5 or under, you're probably not going to have any additional people, any additional trips. It's just not going to generate a substantial number of additional trips. How many times does UPS come into your neighborhood?
I don't know that I've counted that.
But that, if everybody in the neighborhood's ordering from Amazon, UPS and FedEx are delivering there, how many trips are they generating? So there's already a
You do have some different
number.
Sizes of group homes. Is that?
We do. We are looking at a small group home, which would be allowed anywhere. Small group home would be that 5 or fewer persons.
Okay.
And built to a minimum of an R3 construction standard, which is what houses are built to. And then a medium group home, which would be that 6 to 16. Those would still be allowed in the residential districts, but they would require a conditional use permit. And we don't expect we're going to see a lot of those.
Okay.
And they would be permitted outright in our more commercial districts or higher density residential districts where we permit apartments, we permit nursing homes, and those kinds of institutional structures. They would have to be built to that R4, a little bit higher residential standard. And then anything with a capacity of 16 or more would be a large facility and would require that it be built to an institutional I-1 building code standard.
Do you have any feedback yet from the ACLU?
From the
NEOC?
They have indicated that if we move forward with this, they like what we've come up with.
Okay.
Is it a final decision? No, it's not, and until we get it adopted, we're not going to know. But the indications are that this would move forward, and alleviate concerns that they may
We're
have.
on the right track and can avoid any penalties.
Right.
Okay,
Exactly.
well that's a good thing. We're about to the end of our program, but I did want to let Chad know that we have kind of a policy here with our program that when you come and interview video online with us on your birthday and your 50th birthday no
Oh, well,
less,
thank you.
you get a cookie.
You get a very nice cookie.
All right, congratulations and happy
Thank
birthday,
you.
Chad.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for joining us today.